والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we're continuing to look at Hamidat Crescent, and we've looked at Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Kahf, and Surah Al-An'am. And today we're going to look at Surah Al Sabaa. It's a beautiful surah. It's got 54 ayat. As you can see, it's a Makki surah. And literally all these begin with, when I say hamd, it's praise and gratitude. So on my Quran, if I were to write the focus, I would literally write greed and ungratefulness, because it's talking about the people of Sabah, and we'll look at history and we'll see what they did. If you look at the focus generally on your building, you'll see there's praise and gratitude to Allah. It's a means of increase, deniers of divine guidance and resurrection. And then it gives you the example of the people of Sabah and how there is a destructive power in ungratefulness and greed. And finally, at the end, there is a exhortation. There's one little thing Allah says, and give you one thing to think about. He says, don't go for group mentality. Think for yourself. Those who migrated for Sabah, this is a did you know, were the tribes of Aus and Khazraj, and we'll come and talk about them in a little while as well. Benefits of recitation, its protection, and it removes fear from the heart. And you will see why. It's a phenomenal surah. So we've divided it into 6 sections. Okay, so I'm going to just go over the sections that you have here. But we'll start off with the surah. So, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi alladhi. So praise and gratitude is for Allah, or is for He. Lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. Everything in the heavens and the earth, it belongs to Him. Walahul hamd, and for Him is praise and gratitude. Fil akhirah, in the hereafter as well. Wa huwal haqimul khabir. He is the all-wise, all-aware. That's a very simple ayah. I don't need an explanation here. It's very easy to understand this. Now what does he say? Ya'lamu, he knows. It's talking about his knowledge. Ma yaliju fil ard. He knows what is planted in the earth, what goes down in the earth. Wa ma yakhruju minha, and what comes out of the earth. Now, very many things we can look at. We can look at seeds that are planted. We can look at the human being who is put in the earth, and what comes out is his deeds. So many things you can look at with the earth. But in essence, we're looking at the human being. If you can imagine us at death being planted in the earth, and then what comes out is what we have done. وَمَا يَنْزِلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. He knows what comes down from the heavens. My mother used to say, whatever goes up has to come down. So if you did a dua, the dua goes up, the answer has to come down. You did istighfar, you did tawbah. What's sent up is always comes down. وَمَا يَعْرُجُ فِيهَا, and what He knows what goes up and what comes down. وَهُوَ الرَّحِيمُ الْغَفُورُ. He is all merciful and He is all forgiven. Now that gives us always the attributes of Allah. Will tell us what this ayah is talking about. So forgiving means if I'm doing istighfar, if I'm sending istighfar, He is forgiving. If I'm doing tawbah, it will come back. Rahim talks about my du'as. Rahim also talks about the guidance that I received and how it will come out when I'm planted in the earth. He says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Those who cover up the truth, they say, لَا تَعْتِينَ السَّاعَةِ. I mean, they're saying, there's going to be no accountability. Kul bala, tell them. وَرَبِّي لِتَعْتِيَنَّكُمْ عَالِمَ الْغَيْبِ. My Rabb He knows the unseen. لَا يَعْزُبُ عَنْهُ مِثْقَالُ ذَرَّةٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. It will not escape Him, even the smallest atom's worth of deeds in the heavens or the earth. Now in Surah Al-Zilzal we read that even an atom's worth of deeds, which is good will be revealed, which is bad will be revealed. Azib is something that is hidden for a long time, or lost for a long time, and you even stop searching for it. It's also referred to for somebody who is moved out, and they've gone away, far away, and after a while you don't even think about them. So he says, La ya'zubu, and even that which you've forgotten about, even that which you didn't even think about. He says, La ya'zubu anhu mithqala dharratin fis samawati wal ard. It is not forgotten with Him. وَلَا أَصْغَرْ, not even that which is less, asghar, lesser than, min dhalika wal akbar, or greater than, illa fi kitabin mubin. So in other words, absolutely everything is recorded. However insignificant, good or bad, it's recorded. Now what will he do with this record? The first thing he says, and it's phenomenal, he says, لِيَجْزِيَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, so he may compensate the one who believes and who manifests his belief or her belief through good deeds. So in other words, he doesn't even overlook the smallest of deeds. أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ وَرِزْقٌ كَرِيمٌ, and for them there is forgiveness and there is an amazing sustenance. Now rizq does not only mean pound signs. Rizq is emotional, physical, mental, it's the whole lot all put together. And he says, وَالَّذِينَ سَعَوْا, Sa'aw comes from sa'i, which you all know. Those who try, fi ayatina, who try with our signs to mu'ajizin. Mu'ajiz is somebody who tries to make something fail. There's a little bit of noise going on, so if we could cancel that noise, that'd be really cool. Okay. So those who strive hard in going against our communication, who try to make our communications fail, who try to create a scenario to stop something to produce results. In other words, who try to stop the Quran, who try to stop divine guidance. أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ, they will have a punishment min rijsin alim, which will be of a painful kind, which will be a really painful punishment. And then he says, وَيَرَى الَّذِينَ, and when you see those who have been given utul ilm, who have been granted knowledge, الَّذِي أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ, and they see that this has been revealed from your Rabb, they know who al-haq, that this is the truth. وَيَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ, and they know that it will be guidance to a path which is Aziz and Hamid, which is praiseworthy, which is full of gratitude, and which is awesome. Aziz, mighty, awesome, whatever you want to say. So in other words, it's saying, if you have any sense in you, you will realize that this is the path towards your full potential. Now, these are the objections of the Quraysh. So he says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and those who cover up the truth say, هَلْ نَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى رَجُلٍ يُنَبِّئُكُمْ إِذَا مُزِّقْتُمْ كُلُّ مُمَزَّقٍ. Shall we show you? Let us point you out. Let us show you. Let us show you a person. عَلَى رَجُلٍ يُنَبِّئُكُمْ, naba is to give you news, who is telling you that إِذَا مُزِّقْتُمْ كُلُّ مُمَزِّقٍ, that he is telling you that when everything is destroyed, I'll show you in my Quran so you can see how I've highlighted it as well, who is telling you that when things are dead, they've actually scattered in the dust, and he's telling you that they'll be all put together, and then innakum lafi khalqin jadid, and then you're going to be a new creation. In other words, they mocked resurrection. Aftara ala Allahi kadhiban, he is making up a lie, he's actually lying. Am bihi jinnah, and you know, junoon, somebody who's mad, is that their mind is covered. That is why Jannah is where there's no earth showing, it's just grass everywhere. Junoon, somebody who's mad. Janeen is a fetus, is covered by the womb. So in the same way, they're saying his mind is covered, he's crazy. بَلِ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ, no, but those who don't believe in accountability, they are the ones who will be in punishment, fil adhab وَالضَّلَالِ الْبَعِيدِ, and they will be really, really far away. In other words, they will be the lost ones. So in other words, the very fact that they don't believe in hereafter, the very fact that they don't believe in accountability, is they're covering up the truth, puts them in greater pain because they don't have trust in God. This is what he's saying. Last part of this section. أَفَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ, Do they not then consider what is before them, وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ, and what is behind them, مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ, in the heavens and the earth? Just think about it. It says, إِن نَشَأْ نَقْصِفْ بِهِمُ الْأَرْضِ. We could actually make them disappear in the earth. أَوْ نُسْكِتْ عَلَيْهِمْ كِسْفًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ, or we would have sent something heavy from the heavens that would fall down on them. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً لِكُلِّ عَبْدٍ مُنِيبٍ. In this there is a sign for every servant of Allah who is munib. Munib is a turning to Allah that is a spiritual turning. Ruju means to turn back. Inaba is when a heart turns back to Allah. So he says, just for a moment think, the earth could open up and swallow you up. Just for a moment think, something would fall from the sky and that would be the end of you. Have you ever thought how fragile life is? So if you look at ayah 1 to 9, I'm going to show it to you in my Quran so you can have a little bit of a look. There you go. I've downloaded the surah, cut it out. I've got greed and ungratefulness, and I've highlighted the ayat, or the words rather, that I think are sort of important. They'll come back and remember. I'll be able to remember them. So you could do that, and that goes up to ayah 9. You could do that for all those words. So I like the word inaba, for a heart to turn back. You could also put ruju there, which is just to turn back. We're going to look at the second section now. So in essence, this first section that we looked at is talking about it's talking about the people of Makkah, their objections. It's also starting off with praise and gratitude to Allah. But in essence, it's the deniers of accountability. They deny accountability, they deny divine guidance. So now we're going to look at the second section. And this is Prophet Dawood and Prophet Sulaiman. Okay? It's really amazing. Really, really amazing. So let's see what happens. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ مِنَّا فَضْلًا. So we gave these awesome favors to Dawood. We gave them. So what did we give them? Ya Jibal, O mountain, Awibi ma'ahu wat-tayr. Join him, join his chorus when he sings our praise, and birds as well. You know, how am I going to put this now? So you imagine a munajat, and you imagine you have the person doing the verses, and then we all join in. So in essence, the mountains and the birds joined into this chorus. So you can imagine him outside in the morning, Fajr, Maghrib, Zohar, whatever you want, sitting outside and reciting a munajat. Munajat is a secret conversation with Allah, and you might think of somebody singing. He could be singing the praises of Allah. And imagine all this joining in. Imagine them, like a movie, joining in with the praise. It's amazing. But then he says, but also, what we also did for him, he says, وَعَلَنَّا لَهُ الْحَدِيدِ. We made iron soft for him, like soft wax. Lina is a soft date. So it was like wax to him. That's how soft we made it for him. What did we tell him to do? We said, Ani-amal, make, do work, sabiratin. So make from it sabirat, make from it armor. وَقَدِّرْ فِي السَّرْدِ. And we said, make precise in linking the rings. Make sure that you're very precise in how you make it. But قَدِّرْ فِي السَّرْدِ also means only make as much as is required. Don't go OTT. There's a lot in here that we can take back. Don't go for excess if it's going to mean losing out family time. So if I were to work 100 times more just because I thought, well, I've got the opportunity to do it, but I've lost those years with my children, then qadr fi sard applies to us as well. So even Dawood is told me, you might want to make loads, but you not only make that which is necessary, and make these, put in a proper effort into what you're making. I could also say, act righteously, wa'amal salihan, act righteously, inni bima ta'amaluna basir, because I see what you do. the technology I have given you in making armors, Dawood, and to you and me as well, I see what you do. Make sure you use it for the right reasons. Allah never inspired people to make things to kill people with. They made them themselves, swords and sticks and whatever they were. But He inspired protection. Defensive armor was made as an inspiration. And He says, always do it for the right reasons. And then this was Dawood. Let's see what the son was given. Wali Sulaiman. To Sulaiman, we gave him control of rih, of the winds. غُدُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ. So he would be able to take a journey of a month in a morning. I suppose he was the first air travel pioneer. وَرَوَاهُهَا شَهْرٌ. And so shahr is a month. And then وَأَصَلْنَا لَهُ عَيْنَ الْقِطْرِ. Okay, let's go back to here. So غُدُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ رَوَاهُهَا شَهْرٌ. So he could return back in the evening as well. So basically he could go on the wind would take him on a journey of a month in the morning, and he could travel back before the sun sets. He wouldn't have any traffic. There's very little traffic in the air. So you can imagine, it's amazing. وَأَصَلْنَا لَهُ عَيْنَ الْقِطْرِ. And we gave him fountains of copper. So to the father we made iron soft. To the son we gave him fountains of copper. And you can imagine molten copper everywhere. Now molten copper required workers to help, and it needed workers to whom heat wouldn't affect. So he says, وَمِنَ الْجِنِّ. Jinn are made out of smokeless fire. مَنْ يَعْمَلُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ. We gave him jinns who worked with him with the permission of their Rabb. وَمَنْ يَزِغْ مِنْهُمْ عَنْ أَمْرِنَا نُذِقْهُ مِنْ عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. So they could handle our heat, and whoever turned aside from our command, we would make them the punishment of burning. So we've got father and son here. So what did he make out of this molten copper? What did these jinns do? يَعْمَلُونَ لَهُ. They made for him مَا يَشَاءُ. Whatever he pleased. مِن مَحَارِيبَ. They made fortresses. They made tamathil, these images. وَجِفَانٍ كَالْجَوَابِ وَقُدُورٍ. These large cauldrons. You can imagine these large copper cauldrons to cook in. رَاسِيَاتٍ. Which some would not even move from their place, they were that heavy. إِعْمَلُوا آلَ دَاوُودَ. Know, O family of Dawood, shukran wa kalilum min ibadiy ash-shukur. They thanked Allah, which means everything they did was done to be able to assist humanity. But very few of my servants are grateful. So whatever they were given, so whether they made their huge castles, whether they made the tamathil, which might have been mihrabs as in mosques, whatever constructions they did, whatever large cauldrons they did to feed people, they were all there to do shukr of Allah. The only way you can do shukr is to be able to assist humanity. But he says very few do my shukr. Again Sulaiman, فَلَمَّا قَضَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَوْتِ. When we decreed death for Sulaiman, مَا دَلَّهُمْ عَلَى مَوْتِهِ. They didn't know that he was dead. Can you imagine Sulaiman watching over his kingdom, holding his staff, he's leaning over his staff. They're all petrified of him. Now he's already died. And they don't know, because rigor mortis has set in and he's holding on to his staff. إِلَّا دَابَّةُ الْأَرْضِ. Except these little creatures of the earth, termites from the earth. تَأْكُلُوا مِنْ سَعَتَهُ. And they ate away at his staff. When that fell, فَلَمَّا خَرَّ. When it fell, تَبَيَّنَتِ الْجِنُّ. Then the jinn knew أَنْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ الْغَيْبَ مَا لَبِثُوا فِي الْعَذَابِ الْمُهِينِ. And they would not have known that only when he fell did they realize that he had died. I'll go back to my Quran so you can see I've got the fire there, I've got the mountains and the birds singing with Dawood. I've got the buildings and the cauldrons, and I've got the staff, and I only have to look at these images and it all comes back to me as such. So that ends the second section. Now we look at the third section, and this is the story of Sabah, and I'd like you to stay with me. I'm going to talk about Sabah and then we'll go into each of the ayat so you know it. So The way to remember Sabah is 34 is in Swahili or even in Arabic. Sabah is 7. 3 plus 4 is 7. So you know surah number 34 is Sabah, or Sabah if you remember. Sabah you remember, you can't forget it. So Sabah was a seaport in Yemen. You can imagine, blessed with awesome greenery, ecology. It was good, it was pure land, and we'll see it in the ayat. Now, they were ungrateful. So what happens? They were this trade and agricultural capital. They had the ability to export their produce because of their position. So they were on the sea, but they also had access to the towns. So between Jerusalem in Palestine and Sabah, so you can imagine this whole big area, there were tiny little towns. And these were, in essence, their smaller trade partners. But they didn't want the small towns there. They prayed for the little towns to be removed. They only wanted to trade with the larger towns. So you can imagine, when you have large supermarkets today, hypermarkets, they don't want the little corner shops. They're trying to run them out of business, either with prices or buying a lot, so they run them out, and all sorts of things. It's exactly the same thing that happens today that happened then. And they only wanted the wealthy and the large towns to trade. And that was their dua. They actually prayed that we want to push the little towns out. They didn't want an economy where everybody prospered. They wanted to galvanize support using religion, using Allah. That was their dua. And Allah says that we made their travel safe and easy because of the small towns. And because of the way they prayed, and because of their du'as, they are made a historical example. And Sabah is totally ruined because the dam is broken. They're below sea level. They've got a dam of Iram it's called. The dam breaks, totally annihilated. It becomes a place where there's, and we'll see it in the ayat, like a desert with only spiky fruit and uneatable fruit there. The tribes of Aus and Khazraj in Yemen moved to Medina. They then became the Ansar of Medina. And as a result of the downfall of Sabah, Makkah becomes the trade center as such. And you find Sura Al and Quraysh are related. When we do Kaaba corner, you will see how all these are related, because that's when Abraha now wants to make Yemen greater again, and so on and so forth. So do you remember Sabah, Fil and Quraysh, all related together? Now let's look at what happens. So Allah says, لَقَدْ كَانَ, indeed, بِسَبَعٍ, لِسَبَعٍ rather, in Sabah, في مسكنهم آية, in the staying or in the abode of Sabah, there is a sign. Jannatan, there were 2 gardens, and yamin wa shimal, on the right and the left. Kulu min rizqi rabbika, man, turn, eat of the rizq that Allah has given you, enjoy it. Washkuru lahu, be thankful. Baldatun tayyibatun, it's a beautiful land, it's a good and pure land, awesome ecology. وَرَبٌّ غَفُورٌ, and your Rabb is so forgiving. Can you imagine? They were given everything. فَأَعْرَضُوا, so they turned aside. They were ungrateful. فَأَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ سَيْلَ الْأَرِمِ, and we sent them the flood of Arim. Arim was the name of the dam which sort of cracked open. وَبَدَّلْنَاهُمْ بِجَنَّتَيْهِمْ, and we turned their gardens, جَنَّتَيْن زَوَاتَيْ أُكُلٍ خَمْتٍ, into a garden which had khamtin, which had fruits that were so sour that maybe even animals wouldn't eat them. وَأَثْرٍ, they were bitter, they were spiky. وَشَيْءٍ مِّن سِدْرٍ قَلِيلٍ, in between there's a little bit of greenery, there's a little bit of plants growing here and there. ذَلِكَ جَزَيْنَاهُمْ بِمَا كَفَرُوا, and this was a compensation because they covered up the truth. وَهَلْ نُجَازِي إِلَّا الْكَفُورِ, and we don't recompense anyone like this. We don't punish them except those who cover up the truth. So what happened? وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَهُمْ, we made between them, وَبَيْنَ الْقُرَى, and the towns, الَّتِي بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا, which we had blessed, فِيهَا قُرًى ظَاهِرَةٍ, in between there were these small towns that were very visible. وَقَدَّرْنَا فِيهَا سَيْرَ سِيرُ, and we made the journey easy. We made sure that they had a journey that was easy. Quran Zahira is obvious town, so there wasn't just desert between them, there was little towns. Fiha لَيَالِيَ وَإِيَامًا آمِنِينَ. And we said, travel through these towns night and day secure. You know, when you have little towns everywhere, traveling is secure rather than just a stretch of desert. But فَقَالُوا, look at their dua. They said, رَبَّنَا, our Rabb, بَاعِد, make far space, بَيْنَ أَسْفَارِنَا, make space in our journeys. That means we want, make large spaces in our journeys. We don't want these small towns. وَظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ, they were unjust to themselves. فَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ, so we made them أحاديث, we made them stories. There were stories. وَمَزَّقْنَاهُمْ كُلَّ مُمَزِّقٍ, and we scattered them. That means rather than this community they had, this dam, they had to migrate everywhere. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةٍ لِكُلِّ صَبَّارٍ شَكُورٍ. In this there is a sign for everyone who has sabr and who has grateful. We're going to split you apart if you're not going to share, if you always want everything for yourself. We're going to, mazak is to annihilate. We will annihilate you totally. You'll have nothing left. In England, we're known to be known as me and my family and my little clan as such. Or not even clan, me and my own. This is talking about the same thing. It doesn't work. وَلَقَدْ صَدَّقَ عَلَيْهِمْ إِبْلِيسِ, and Iblis confirmed his assumption of ungratefulness. ظَنَّهُ, his assumption. فَاتَّبَعُوهُ, he knew they were ungrateful. And he used that. إِلَّا فَرِيقًا مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, except there was a party of them that believed. Now, some historians say that was the Aus and the Khazraj, who then moved to Medina and became companions of the Prophet. But وَمَا كَانَ لَهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ, he has no authority over them unless they let him. إِلَّا لِنَعْلَمَ مَنْ يُؤْمِنُ بِالْآخِرَةِ, and we distinguish them. That means he will only have authority if you don't believe in accountability. مِمَّنْ هُوَ مِنْهَا فِي الشَّكٍ, أو the one who is in doubt about accountability. وَرَبُّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ حَفِيظٌ, and Allah He can preserve everything. He didn't have to destroy them, but He had to teach them a lesson about the way they were behaving. Now we come to section 4. So we talked about in the first section the Quraysh. In the second section we had Dawood and Sulaiman, and in the third section we had Sabah. Now we look at the section 4, which is quite a long section, and here Allah addresses the flawed beliefs of the Quraysh and their opposition to divine guidance. Okay. So they define success as wealth and children, but Allah defines success completely differently. He says success is belief and serving humanity. Two different opposing definitions of success. So what does he say? قُلِ ادْعُوا الَّذِينَ زَعَمْتُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ, tell them, O Muhammad, tell them, call upon those. Za'ama or za'am is a false assumption, whom you call upon other than Allah. لا يملكون مثقال ذرة, they don't control even an atom's worth in the heavens, ولا في الأرض, or in the earth. وما لهم فيهما, or even between them, من شرق, no association in either. وما لهم منهم من ظهير, وما له منهم من ظهير, and there is none to back them up. ولا تنفع الشفاعة, he will not accept any shafa'ah, and shafa'ah will not be of any use to them in the whole. إلا لمن أذن له, except the one whom Allah has permitted. حتى, until, إذا فزع عن قلوبهم, now in their hearts there is always terror. Fuzza is to remove terror. There's always this scaredness. What's going to happen? I don't know. Now he's saying, when this terror is removed, when you're sure, قالوا, then you say, ماذا قال ربكم? What did your Rabb say? قالوا حق. What he says is truthful. وهو العلي الكبير. He's the most high and he's the most great. So to you and me, we're being told Allah's word is the truth. It's going to happen. He is the most high and he is the greatest. That's why we begin every Sabah with Allahu Akbar. Now these are rhetoric questions that are asked. قل, say, ما يرزقكم من السماوات والأرض. Who gives you sustenance from the heavens and the earth? قل, say Allah, say Allah. And Surah Al-Quraysh puts it very, very well together. They lived in a barren land, yet Allah says, لإلاف قريش. It's amazing. And He says, think about it. Who gives you the sustenance? It's Allah. وَإِنَّا أَوْ إِيَّاكُمْ لَعَلَى هُدًى أَوْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Say Allah, and surely, just think about it for a minute, He says. Who is on the right way? Are you questioning that is the Prophet is saying, are you questioning my righteousness or my guidance? Are you in error or am I in error? It's a rhetoric question. قل, tell them, لا تسألون أما أجرمنا. You will not be questioned as to what we are guilty of. In other words, you don't have to be questioned about it. We know. وَلَا نُسْأَلُ أَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. Nor shall we be questioned as to what you do. You will be questioned on your own, and you don't have to be questioned either. You don't have to. In other words, let me put this put it in a nutshell. I don't have to justify myself to you. That's basically what the Prophet is saying. قل, say, يَجْمَعُ بَيْنَنَا رَبُّنَا. Our Rabb will put us together. And He ثُمَّ يَفْتَحُ بَيْنَنَا. He will make the final decision. وَهُوَ الْفَتَّاحُ الْعَلِيمُ. He is the one who is the judge. He is the one who is the all-knowing. Fattah, Fataha, the one who is victorious, those who make the ultimate judgment. قل, tell them, أروني الذين ألحقتم به شركاء. Show me those partners that you have associated with Allah. كلا بل هو الله العزيز الحكيم. But Allah is the mighty and the wise. Can you match Him? In other words, they're being told. And then the Prophet is told, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ, and we have not sent you, إِلَّا كَافَةً لِلنَّاسِ, except that you are enough for all humanity. Everything you have is enough for them to find their full potential. You have been sent you as a Bashir and a Nazir, so you give good news and that you warn them. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most human beings do not know. So what do they say? وَيَقُولُونَ, they say, مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدُ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. When will this promise be fulfilled if you're truthful? In other words, they're asking, when will this accountability happen? We haven't seen it. قُلْ, tell them, لَكُمْ مِيعَادُ يَوْمٍ. You have an appointment. Your appointment's already been made for that day. لا تستأخرون عنه الساعة. You will not be able to hold back on that hour. ولا تستقدمون. And you will not be able to bring it quicker either. Could be talking about death when there's a first accountability, and resurrection when there's a second accountability. But they can't see it. وقال الذين كفروا. And those who cover up the truth, they say, لن نؤمن بهذا القرآن. We will never believe in this Quran. ولا بالذي بين يديه. Nor in that which was before it. You know, the Torah was also called the Quran. So they are basically saying that you're saying the same things we heard from the Jews of Medina. Oh, well, we're not going to believe in any of this. We don't believe in any of this. There's no accountability. And they used to bring a bone to the Prophet, crush it in front of him, and say, you're actually telling me this is going to come back to life. So it wasn't that they didn't believe in Allah. If you look at other parts of the Quran, there's Man khalaqa as-samawati wal ard, who created the heavens and the earth? Qulillah. They will say Allah. They believe in a creator. But they believe that the creator did not have a right to tell them what to do and how to reach their full potential, and that they would not be accountable, and the world was it. Now Allah is giving us a look at, if only you could see, وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذِ الظَّالِمِينَ. If only you could see those who are unjust. مَوْقُوفُونَ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. They're standing in front of their Rabb. يَرْجِعُوا بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. So remember ruju, I said to come back. So they are having conversations between them with one another. بعضهم إلى البعض القول يقول الذين استضعفوا للذين استكبروا. So those who are weak are telling those who are proud, who are arrogant, لولا أنتم لكنا مؤمنون. Had it not been for you, we would have believed. So they're basically saying that had you not put all these shows on TV, had you not bombarded us with all these adverts, had you not made life of the world so attractive to us, we would have believed it's all your fault. But those who were arrogant, they will say لِلَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا, to those who were weak, in other words, those who followed them, أَنَحْنُ صَدَدْنَاكُمْ عَنِ الْهُدَى, we didn't stop you from guidance, it's not our fault. We were just doing what helped our economy. We were just doing what we thought we wanted to do. Now this is the conversation they're having. بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَكُمْ, guidance came to you. بَلْ كُنْتُمْ مُجْرِمِينَ, you chose to be guilty. Nobody forced you to follow us. Nobody forced you to, I don't know, whatever you want to talk, whatever you want to say about this. Basically, those who were sheep told those who put it all out there that it's all your fault. Or if I lived in Iran or Iraq, maybe the adhan came, I'd have prayed on time, but you distracted me with football. You distracted me with shows on TV. It was all your fault. Netflix, whatever. Amazon Prime, I don't know, whatever you watch. So they are blaming them, and these people are saying, no, we didn't force you to do anything. You did it all on your free will. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا لِلَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا, but those who were weak, the sheep basically, told those who were arrogant, بَلْ مَكْرُ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ, you bombarded us with your adverts day and night. إِذْ تَأْمُرُونَنَا أَن نَكْفُرَ بِاللَّهِ, and you told us, you ordered us to cover up the truth about Allah. وَنَجْعَلَ لَهُ أَنْدَادًا, and you told us that this was better for us to set up lights to him. وَأَسَرُّ النَّدَامَةَ لَمَّا رَأَوُا الْعَذَابَ, and they tried to hide their shame and their guilt when they saw the punishment. وَجَعَلْنَا الْأَغْلَالَ, and we placed shackles. Now these shackles are what we place on ourselves. فِي أَعْنَاقِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, on those who covered up the truth. هَلْ يُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ, this is the recompense of what you did. So the propaganda machines and the consumers, those who put it on and those who downloaded it, both have shackled themselves. We all have free will. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِي قَرْيَةٍ مِّن نَذِيرٍ, and we never sent a warner to a town, إِلَّا, except كَالَ مُتْرَفُوهَا, except those who, a mutraf is somebody who lives in a sort of force field, a bubble of luxury, cannot see beyond it. إِنَّا بِمَا أُرْسِلْتُمْ بِهِ كَافِرُونَ, and they just covered up the truth because they cannot see beyond their bubble. That's all their life is about. And he says, we did tell them, we did bring them a warning, but they couldn't see beyond it. وَكَالُوا, and they say, so those who are mutraf, those who live in their bubble, they say, وَقَالُوا نَحْنُ أَكْثَرُ أَمْوَالًا وَأَوْلَادًا, we have so much wealth and we have so many children. Allah has blessed us with family and wealth. وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمُعَذِّبِينَ, I mean, why would he punish us? He's blessed us here. Obviously, he will bless us there too. If you remember when we did Sura Al Sabaa, it came as an individual who had this massive garden. And he says, I've been blessed with this. I mean, this is going to continue. If Allah blesses me here, He'll bless me there. And that's exactly what these people say. قُلْ, tell them, إِنَّ رَبِّي يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ, Allah will extend the rizq for whom He wishes, وَيَقْدِرُ, and He'll put limits, وَلَكِنَّ, to whom He wishes, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, but most people do not know. And you'll find ayah 39 is sort of similar to ayah 36. Now he says, وَمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُكُمْ, neither your wealth nor your children, بِالَّتِي تُقَرِّبُكُمْ إِنْدَنَا, they're not things that will bring you near divinity. Now look what he says, وَمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُكُمْ, kum is plural, they will not bring you near us. Zulfa illa man amana wa amila salihan. So what will bring you nearer? Singular. If you believe and you manifest your belief in good deeds, even if it's tiny, you did it individually. فَأُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ جَزَاءَ الضِّعْفِ. For them there is a reward that is ضِعْف, that is double, that is twice. بِمَا عَمِلُوا, for what they did. وَهُمْ فِي الْغُرُفَاتِ آمِنُونَ. And they will be in high places. They have a world view. They can see things beyond their noses. They can see dunya and akhirah. Now the reason why he says double reward, I'm looking at what the Mufassirin say, is because they went against the grain of where they were living with. So they were living amongst a community who only thought that life was all about wealth and children. Wealth, that's all they thought about. How am I going to increase this? My family business, my wealth, my whatever. They didn't see beyond that. So they went against the grain and did things that were good. So for them, they have the double reward. One for doing good and one for the difficulty in going against the grain. And they have a world view. They're in higher places. They're in penthouses, basically. وَالَّذِينَ يَسْعَوْنَ فِي آيَاتِنَا. Those who do sa'i, they strive in opposing فِي آيَاتِنَا مُعَاجِزِينَ. Now, again, we talked about mu'ajizin. They want to oppose our communications. أُولَٰئِكَ فِي الْعَذَابِ الْمُحْضَرُونَ. They will be in, they will bring upon, or rather they will be punished for that. They will bring upon, it'll be present for them, that punishment. قُلْ, again, I told you this is very similar to ayah 36. إِنَّ رَبِّي يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ. Say, my Rabb will increase, will extend your sustenance لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ, for whomsoever he wants. Now you can see here, he extends his rizq min ibadi, to those who are connected to his servants. وَيَقْدِرُ لَهُ, and he will put limitations, or he will straighten them. وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ, and there's nothing that you spend in his way. فَهُوَ يُكْلِفُهُ وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. It's really beautiful. So he will always refund you, always give it back to you. And he will give it back to you more than you even expected. وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. He's the best of those who provides rest. وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا, on the day when he will gather everyone together. ثُمَّ يَقُولُ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, then he will tell the angels, هَؤُلَاءِ إِيَّاكُمْ كَانُوا يَعْبُدُونَ. Are you serious? Did they actually worship you? Because this is targeted at the Quraysh who worshipped the angels. Well, they thought they worshipped the angels. They worshipped unseen entities. قالوا, they will say, la la la, subhanaka, glory be to you, we declare your perfection. Anta waliyuna, you, Ya Allah, you are our guardian, you are our wali, you are the one we incline towards, min dunihim, from anybody else. Bal kanu ya'budun al-jinn, they actually worship the jinn. Remember when we talked about Surah Al-Jinn, we talked about the jinn being able to snatch conversations in the heavens before the Quran was revealed. And they would use that. People with black magic do that too. أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِهِمْ مُؤْمِنُونَ. Most of them believed in the jinn, not us. We believe in you. And he says, فَالْيَوْمَ, on that day, لَا يَمْلِكُ بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ نَفْعًا وَلَا ضَرًّا. You can't control profit or harm for another. وَنَقُولُ لِلَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا, and we will say to those who were unjust, ذُوقُوا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, taste the punishment of the fire. This is what you put other people through. الَّتِي كُنْتُمْ بِهَا تُكَذِّبُونَ. You call this a lie. This is what you did. So taste that punishment. Now what happens? What do they do? وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا. When our communications, when our ayat are recited to them, bayinat, clear communications, قالوا, they say, مَا هَذَا إِلَّا رَجُلٌ. This is nothing but a man. يُرِيدُ, he wants to, أَن يَسُدَّكُمْ, he wants you to turn away from what? أَمَّا كَانَ يَعْبُدُ آبَاءَكُمْ. He wants you to turn away from the tradition of your ancestors. He's changing the way you do things. If I go to Khojas, he's stopping you from just partying and partying and partying. He wants you to understand. But he's what he's doing. قَالُوا مَا هَذَا إِلَّا إِفْكٌ. Here's a lie, Muftan. He's making up lies. He's stopping you from doing what your ancestors did all throughout the years. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and those who cover up the truth say, لِلْحَقِّ لَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا سِحْرٌ مُبِينٌ. When the truth comes to them and they recognize it, now they're not calling it a lie. Look what they say. See, when they understand it's the truth, they say this is magic. So they admit that it's powerful and they don't understand it. Lying is an insult. But sihr, magic, is they don't understand it. So they're calling it magic. They're saying it's powerful. We don't understand it. وَمَا آتَيْنَاهُمْ مِنْ كُتُبٍ يَدْرُسُونَهَا. We never gave you books to study. The Quraysh were never given books to study. The Quran was the first one. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ قَبْلَكَ مِنْ نَذِيرٍ. Nor did we send before you a warner. Now you've got one. For God's sakes, listen to him. وَكَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. And those before you already lied. So we talked about people of Sabah. وَمَا بَلَغُوا مِعْشَارًا. And you don't even have, mi'shar comes from ashara, a tenth. You don't even have a tenth of what we gave them. مِعْشَارًا مَا آتَيْنَاهُمْ فَكَذَّبُوا رُسُلِي. They lied. You have so little, and yet you do the same. فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرٌ. What is wrong with you? Nakir is something that you don't even want to talk about. It's an awful thing. So how awful? What are you doing? That's basically what he's saying. Now we come to section 5. Now here we're going to look at an order to think for oneself. Okay, so what is he saying? قل. Say, tell them. إنما أعظكم بواحدة. I'm only asking you to think about one thing. So I'm saying, okay, now, giving you all the arguments, just one thing. Think about it. أن تقوموا لله مثنى وفرادى. So stand before God, two at a time or on your own. ثم تتفكروا. Then think. So in other words, just think for yourself for a minute. وَمَا بِصَاحِبِكُم مِّن جِنَّةٍ. Your companion is not mad. That means the Prophet is not mad. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا نَذِيرٌ لَكُمْ. He's only warning you. بَيْنَ يَدَيْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ. He wants to keep you away from something that will keep you away from difficult punishment, painful punishment. If you thought for yourself for a minute, you stand against the crowd, you will come to the right conclusion. If you in your head took some time, that's why the Prophet said 1 hour's pondering or thinking is better than 70 years ibadah. Sometimes when you just sit down and think, you will think, my goodness, what am I thinking? So he's saying, if you thought, you'll know what Muhammad is saying is the truth. قُل. Now the Prophet is told, tell them, مَا سَأَلْتُكُم مِّنْ أَجْرٍ. I don't want any compensation from you. فَهُوَ لَكُمْ. If you're going to give me something, keep it for yourself. I don't want it. I don't want anything from you. إِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ. My reward only comes from Allah. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ. And He's a witness over everything. I don't want anything from you. Because they thought if he's saying something, he wants something from you. He says, no, I don't want anything. Keep it. قُل. Say, إِنَّ رَبِّي يَقْذِفُ بِالْحَقِّ. Qadhafa is to throw something. You only throw something that you're sure will not break. You only throw a ball because you know it will not break. You won't throw a glass, something that is fragile. So Allah only throws the truth at you. Truth will never ever break. It's solid. It never breaks. He's Allamul Ghuyub. He's knower of the unseen. And then Qul, say, Ja al-haqqu wa ma yubdi al-batil. The truth has come, and falsehood is scared of the truth. It just runs away. Whenever it sees truth, it runs away. وَمَا يُؤِيدُ. Then it doesn't even come back because it's so scared of truth. So you can imagine this truth running after falsehood and the falsehood just disappearing. And you all know the ayah, وَجَعَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. It's an ayah that Imam Mahdi Ajalallahu Faraja will use when he appears at the Kaaba. My goodness, may Allah make us with him. قُل, tell them, إِن زَلَلْتُ. If I am led, if I'm somebody who is astray, or I'm saying the wrong things, فَإِنَّمَا أُضِلُّ عَلَى نَفْسِي. I'm not doing it for myself. It's my going astray is only for myself. وَإِنِ اهْتَدَيْتُ. If I am guided right, فَبِمَا يُوحِي إِلَيَّ رَبِّي. It's because I'm telling you exactly what has been revealed by my Rabb. إِنَّهُ سَمِيعٌ قَرِيب. He is hearing and He is near, very near. I'll show you my Quran in a minute, by the way. وَلَوْ تَرَى is فَزِئُ. And if only you could see. So now we're coming up consequences of rejecting guidance. Okay. Is fazi'u. Remember I talked about fazi'u. Terrified. Fawta. Fawt is refuge. Okay. Fala fawta. There is no refuge. When you're terrified, there is no refuge. وَإِكُذُ مِن مَكَانٍ قَرِيبٍ. And you'll be just taken away. Could be death. When he's saying, when death comes, when you are presented with accountability, there will be no escape from it. There is no refuge from it. وَقَالُوا. And that's when they will say, now this is talking about the Day of Judgment, they will say, آمَنَّا بِهِ. Might be talking about death. They will say, now we believe. وَأَنَّا لَهُمُ التَّنَاوُشُ مِن مَكَانٍ بَعِيدٍ. But now they will be so far away. How is it possible? Because they'll be so far away from the place where they should have believed. So death is so far away from life. Judgment is so far away from dunya, is so far away from the akhirah. وَقَدْ كَفَرُوا بِهِ مِن قَبْلُ. And they were those who covered up the truth before them. وَيَقْذِفُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ مِن مَكَانٍ بَعِيدٍ. And they too, remember Qadhafa here, they mocked about the unseen from a far place. وَحِيلَ بَيْنَهُمْ وَبَيْنَ مَا يَشْتَهُونَ. Heel is like a barrier. So barrier is placed between them. بَيْنَهُمْ وَبَيْنَ مَا يَشْتَهُونَ كَمَا فَعِلَ بِأَشْيَاعِهِمْ مِنْ قَبْلِ. Between them and what they desired, just as it was done by the likes of them way before them. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا فِي شَقٍّ مُرِيبٍ. They, not only were they in doubt, murib means one who puts other people in doubt as well. They make others doubt as well. So we come to the end of our surah. I'll just go over the sections again so you can see them. Just a minute. Here we go. So the first section, they're the deniers of resurrection and divine guidance. And the example of, if you can just imagine, when we're planted in the ground, we emerge, our deeds emerge, abaqiyat as-salihat. We're resurrected as the fruit of our life. Second section, we looked at Dawood and Sulaiman. It was awesome. So if you can just think of iron and copper, you can think of the mountains and the birds, and with Sulaiman, the wind. Then we have the story of Sabah, and you can see what they prayed for. Then we find a whole large section on differences in what success is all about. So they define success as wealth and children. Divinity says individually it's belief in how you serve humanity, in order to think for oneself, and finally the consequence of rejecting divine guidance. So inshallah we will look at Surah Al Fatir next.